and welcome to Books, Movies, Musicals, and More, a podcast where I, Maya Ortiz, discuss books, movies, musicals, and more. On this episode, I will be discussing film adaptations of musicals, my favorites of the 21st century, and hot topics surrounding musical adaptations. So, what is a movie musical? According to Britannica, a musical film is a motion picture consisting of a plot integrating musical numbers. So it's pretty straightforward. However, that means it can be a variety of films. Disney princess movies count. Movies like The Greatest Showman or Wonka, where songs help the plot progress. Or it can be musical adaptations, which is what we're discussing in this video, like Rent or Tick, Tick, Boom or Hairspray. On March 2nd, 2025, the Washington Post shared a list of the best and worst movie musicals of the 21st century. And I will admit, I was more than disappointed with the list. There are two lists, I guess. My primary gripe was that the Post piece compared all movie musicals, which I just feel is too broad. I think it's really hard to compare the movie Coco that Pixar came out with the Rent adaptation. And they did so, and I didn't like their judgment, which brings me on to my second problem with their list. I just simply disagree. And so, on this episode, I'm going to be sharing my 5 favorite movie adaptations of musicals. And then I'll talk more about some current issues adapting musicals for film. So here's my list of stage-to-film adaptations from the 21st century. Notice I am solely focusing on stage-to-film adaptations, so films like Coco and the 2024 Joker movie with Lady Gaga will not be compared against the 2019 Cats adaptation, which did not make my list and made the Washington Post's worst 21st century movie musicals list. And now to my list. My favorite musical adaptation of all time is Rent, which to my surprise made the Washington Post's worst movie musicals list. Rent is my favorite musical overall, and it was the first musical I really got into on my own, and so this definitely is biased because of that. My introduction to Rent was the movie adaptation, and since then I have seen the production live and watched the Fox live production as it aired. So I have seen the onstage production, and I feel it was quite faithful and kept the same energy. The Washington Post rated it on their worst half of the 21st century movie musicals list because of the age of the actors, or at least that was one of the reasons they cited. I personally do not care. Rent is a musical about adults, and so I care significantly less about age-accurate casting than I do movies about teenagers in high school, which we can talk about Dear Evan Hansen later, and Grease, which is casting 30-year-olds, though not in the 21st century, so it did not qualify for this list. Nonetheless, at the end of the day, it is a musical adaptation, and theater has been casting adults to play people of however old for ages. Like, it's not that big of a deal. The movie was primarily the original cast. They replaced a few people here and there, but I will never complain about the original cast being the movie cast, because it preserves some of that original production. And I think that's beautiful and part of the charm, because it is some people's first introduction to the material. And so if you want to keep it closer to the original stage production, please do it. I'm not going to complain about that. And I think Idina Menzel, Anthony Rapp, they were all, Taye Diggs, everybody in it was so amazing and well cast that it really didn't pull you out of the material that they were, 10 years older max. And I thought the people who weren't from the original cast also did amazing. Tracy Toms, Rosario Dawson, they will always be my Joanne and Mimi, because they were my first introduction to the show, and I think they did an incredible job. And then Jonathan Larson passed before Rent became the big thing that it did. And so with that production specifically, keeping the material as close as you can to the original production that he was part of, I think is beautiful and important. So I just feel like that's not the musical we should be like criticizing for keeping the original cast in. Film adaptations of musicals spread the story to a wider audience. That's the purpose of them. They make it more accessible. And Rent is such an important story. In the Age of the Actors didn't change that. Whether it's Jonathan Larson's storytelling, the incredible cast, or my nostalgia, Rent will forever claim the title of my favorite musical and probably musical adaptation. Moving on to my second favorite, it's Les Mis, which also has a bit of controversy. Les Mis is a classic. It's a classic musical, and it's an important story about revolutions. And so, like I said about Rent, getting that story to a wider audience is important, and it's something that should be celebrated. While the Les Mis novel is quite accessible, keeping it to that like short form media of film is helpful, and the stage production as well. And so just making that story more accessible is one reason to celebrate any musical adaptation. The main complaint I see with the film is casting. I adored it. I mean, I love when new actors get their break, and this list doesn't overly show that. But with classics, it's kind of expected to see a star-studded cast, and they went above and beyond. I mean, everybody was somebody, you know? Anne Hathaway, Hugh Jackman, Helena Bonham Carter, Eddie Redmayne, and so many more icons, including Russell Crowe, who gets most of the controversy because his singing is not on par with the other Javerts. And it was once again my first introduction to the media, and I have since seen the stage production multiple times. And I really didn't think Crowe was bad. It didn't take you out of the production, and he's an actor for film, and he acted. I really enjoyed him in it, and I will forever be a Russell Crowe Les Mis defender. When musical adaptations are created, the main question I ask is, how are you going to utilize the film advantage to better your production? And Les Mis really did that. They crafted beautiful sets that took you into 19th century Paris, and the scenery and the time jumps were just executed so perfectly for this film, and it really elevated what the stage production can do, and it pushed those limits, making it a really good film adaptation because it did more with the new media form that it was given. Now, my third film on the list is the Annie 2014 film, and it's one of my favorite films of all time. It's so fun. It's just really, really perfect. And like I mentioned with Les Mis, when a piece of media is adapted, the question is, what is that new form? How is that new form going to elevate the media we already have? We have 2 Annie films at least. And then, of course, the stage production, I would say, is a classic. And the 2014 Annie really did modernize the material, and it took creative liberties that were really, really fun and separated it from that stage production. And I think that's what makes it so amazing, is because you can't really compare it to the source material because the changes were so drastic that it took on a new life and a life of its own, and that was really cool to see. One issue the musical community faces with music adaptations is what music stays, what music goes, does music get added? Annie had all of the above. It removed some tunes, and it added really great songs. And then it changed the lyrics to match the news story of who Annie is, which was really cool. And then I think this film is what Disney should strive for when remaking Disney films, if they require doing that, which it seems they are. Give the film new life. Make it different. Stop trying to be an exact replica of the film, or at least don't market yourself that way. Market yourself as a new version. We have so many Cinderellas, and like obviously the original films are adaptations of some story in some way. So make your new film adaptation, give it new life, modernize the classic, and have fun with it. We don't need the exact thing we already saw. Change it up a bit. Wicked gets the 4th spot on my list, and it was a really beautiful film. I think technically it was amazing with the practical sets. I think casting was great. And it did what I've mentioned previously of it just like completely elevated the stage production with its practical sets. And that was really, really impressive. I wish it got more attention at the Oscars, but whatever. It is lower on my list because we only got half of the production, and if you can sit through the whole musical on stage, I feel you can sit through the whole film, but we're getting it in 2 halves, and the more the merrier, maybe. We'll find out when part 2 comes out. Cynthia Erivo killed it, and I have been rooting for Ariana Grande to be casted as Glinda since her popular song with Mika. And so I was really, really pleased with the casting, and Jonathan Bailey was amazing. It was amazing. Their practical sets were what took the film above and beyond and led me to rank it so high. And then Wicked did a wonderful job referencing the source material. Wicked is based off of a novel. Wicked, the musical, is based off of a novel, and that, of course, is based off of The Wizard of Oz and the novels of The Wizard of Oz. And so there were a lot of references to reference, and Wicked, the movie, did it really well in referencing all of the source material and where this piece of media has come from. And so that was really beautiful. And then it acknowledged the original stage production with Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth by bringing them in for one short day, and that was really amazing. I'm really excited to see part 2, and I'm glad we got at least one musical adaptation to thrive in 2024. My final pick is Hairspray, the 2007 movie, and I'll be honest, this ranking is primarily nostalgia. It was one of the first musical adaptations I watched, and it's overall just really fun. The cast really encapsulates the 2007 time period of when it was made, so that's cool to look back on. The story has an important message, so again, getting that out to a wider audience. There have been other Hairspray films and adaptations created. Just bringing it to a wider audience in the time period is important. And at the end of the day, Hairspray is a bop. I mean, it's one of those musicals that like every song you can dance to and have a good time. At the end of the day, the 2007 film isn't groundbreaking, but it is fun, and the world needs joy, and to dance sometimes. And so that's why it takes the number 5 spot on my list. I've shared my top 5, but it's important to not acknowledge all of the other 21st century musicals more broadly. And to do that, I have enlisted the help of Kathleen Ortiz.
Hi, I'm Kathleen.
That's all. What is your favorite musical adaptation of the 21st century?
Okay, of the 21st century, I feel it's gotta be Rent or Hairspray. I just feel like those are both so beautiful and just really moving. I feel like In the Heights is up there too for me, but I do agree that like there are clear reasons why it's not in my top, 1, but yeah, I have a lot. I feel like I am bad at choosing favorites just because I could make a case for all of them, probably.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned In the Heights, and one of the issues I previously discussed with making musical adaptations is what music makes the final cut. And In the Heights is one of those where like I didn't include it in my top 5 because when I go back and listen to that musical, my favorite songs were cut. Inutil, Enough. I'm on an Enough kick right now, and it never made the film. We just killed her off.
Yeah, I also feel like some of the lyric changes, kind of, a lot of the movies I was introduced to first, before the musical when I was little, and so it wouldn't bother me, and I would listen to the movie cast instead of the original Broadway cast, but In the Heights is one over and over again where I will literally only listen to the original Broadway cast.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it, is which you were introduced to first. And even like going to a show and seeing a different cast member than someone who's on the soundtrack. It's just whatever you see first is typically going to be your favorite. Dear Evan Hansen was another one where my favorite song was cut, Good For You. That was super disappointing. One of my favorite songs in Rent, Goodbye Love, was cut from the final film. However, they did film the scene and they've released it as a deleted scene. And so being born after the movie came out, I feel it was part of the movie because I've seen the scene so many times in addition to the film. But musical adaptations sometimes add songs.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, excited maybe isn't the right word, but Wicked's adding a new song in part two.
Dear Evan Hansen adds songs. I haven't seen Cats, but I do listen to Beautiful Ghosts. Love Taylor Swift. All of the songs in the 2014 Annie are bangers, and they added many new songs. This City's Yours is one I constantly listen to. Who Am I is such a good moment in the film.
It is so good.
And so that's one where like adding songs can transform the film.
Positively.
Yes. There's another issue with musical adaptations, and that is casting. Who are you going to cast? Is it going to be age accurate? Can they sing? And when adapting something for film, there's a lot of times they'll pick famous actors, which we saw in my top 5. And so what is your opinion on who is too old to be in a musical adaptation or even like film?
Yeah, I think this is a hard one just because like Dear Evan Hansen is a prime example, but when you also think about it, people will complain about anything. People said that Cynthia Erivo looked too old, but she was quite literally the most beautiful like voice they could have chosen. And so I just think like they could have chosen anyone and people would have had problems. Dear Evan Hansen is a tricky case. He looked so old and they had to use like a ton of makeup and like, I don't want to say CGI, but they used something to make him look younger than he was. And that was kind of disappointing when really there is like a huge pool of actors they can pull from, and he was a part of the original Broadway cast, so it's not that he hasn't been a part of it before. But I mean, maybe that's a point that people bring up for why he should be in it, is to keep the integrity of the original films or the original show. So what do you think? I don't know. I just don't think there's a right answer.
Yeah, I think casting the original cast is never going to be something I complain about. And it goes back to like who you see in the show for the first time. And so that's not something I'm going to complain about. I saw Dear Evan Hansen, and within 5 minutes I stopped thinking about how old Ben Platt looked. So like it really wasn't incredibly distracting. I think the question of who is too old is a question that like plagues all entertainment, film, sports, TV, theater, constantly. Grease had like 30-year-olds playing high schoolers. I think when it comes down to high schoolers, I see a lot more of an issue because it can take you out. But because of the entertainment industry constantly aging people up and it being something so common in theater, for a musical adaptation, I really don't see a crazy issue with it. Though I think we do have so many young, talented actors that can get these roles and deserve these roles. And so, like, maybe the entertainment industry needs reform in their casting choices, but right now I'm not complaining about it. I think an interesting thing that we're going to see sometime in the future is Merrily We Roll Along, which is
Yes.
filming over the span of, I think, 20 years to show how the production spans 20 years through the lives of the characters. And so that'll be something that's pretty new. I mean, it's been done before, but it'll be really cool to see a production that actually ages with the cast, which is something you can't overly see on stage. Another question is, can they sing? Which is why people are constantly coming for Russell Crowe. And like, where do you draw the line of they act great for the character, but they cannot sing?
Yeah. I feel like I love the music so much that I don't usually notice. Like Mean Girls, I go in and I was like, wow, that was a really fun, happy, exciting movie. And then I log on to Twitter and everyone is just like going insane. And I didn't notice it while I was watching the movie. I think that's just because I'm not a professional singer. I like to go into movies and enjoy them, so I don't particularly go in looking for things to dislike. So I don't know how you feel, but I feel like I don't have that big of an opinion on can they sing. I mean, usually they can sing enough to fool me. What do you think?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I really don't notice.
I just don't.
Yeah. I honestly notice more when going to production and seeing someone who isn't in the original cast, and like seeing a stage production, I'll nitpick the differences in my head. I always enjoy myself, so I don't complain. But with movie musicals, I really don't notice or care. Yeah, Mean Girls, I think I noticed more than Les Mis. But both were fun and they did the job, and I was pleased. At the end of the day, I had a good experience. The last question about casting is James Corden the issue?
I feel bad because like I don't want to be on like a hate train of someone who I know nothing about, but people on Twitter really, really, really don't like him.
Yeah. I don't really know if it's James Corden. And like clearly he keeps getting cast. And if I see someone in something, I just trust that they were the best.
Yeah.
Which, like, maybe I shouldn't.
I wasn't in the casting room. How am I supposed to know?
How do I know who the other options were?
Yeah.
I didn't love The Prom, which he was in. Or Into the Woods. And I refused to see Cats. So, like, maybe. But I don't think he was, like, the end-all, be-all.
Yeah.
I just don't think I like Into the Woods enough as a show, which I probably shouldn't say on the internet. And Ariana DeVos was great in The Prom, and it was overall good. It just wasn't my favorite thing ever, and I really don't think that was James Corden's fault.
I feel like not so much into casting, but like a little bit more into the acting part, acting on screen versus stage. It's not that the actors can't do both, it's more of like, does the show fit well on the screen? I mean, we don't need close-ups all the time. I mean, musicals are meant to be on the stage where you have to project, you have to make big facial expressions, big gestures so that people all the way in the balcony can see what's going on. And so sometimes I think that that's an interesting thing that you have to think about in a musical adaptation is, was this ever meant to be seen on screen? Are we messing with it? Like, I was not supposed to ever see anyone this close up. Yeah, I don't know, just random.
And then going back to sort of casting and choosing people who can sing and act, there is a difference between acting on stage and acting on screen. And so then you do have to make the choices of, do I cast someone who's like perfect for these songs and for this musical, or do I cast someone who's going to look better on the camera and therefore in the movie theater?
I think one of the main problems with current musical adaptations, bring back big music numbers, big dance numbers. Why are people not tap dancing anymore?
Yes. Yeah.
That is my biggest problem. I'm not looking at anything. I can't tell how old the cast members are usually. I can't tell if they can't sing, but I can tell that I don't want people walking around.
Yeah.
People are always walking. Bring back dancing. That's like my biggest gripe in general. Like, where is Kenny Ortega? I mean, I know he retired, but I need him back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. People like musicals.
Yeah.
So let them dance.
Let them dance. Also, like, you can tell us that they sing.
Yeah.
In the previews. Like, why are we trying to hide it?
Mm-hmm.
Let them dance. Let them sing. Tell us that they're gonna dance and sing. I will show up.
Mm-hmm.
Other people will show up. My friends, I'll make them show up.
Yeah, I think one thing in The Heights and West Side Story did really well is they brought back those dance numbers.
Yes, honestly, Dancing Through Life, like there
yes,
were some good ones
Dancing
in
Through Life
Wicked.
was great.
There were some good ones in Wicked too.
Mm-hmm. And then we get to the musical dilemma, which is something we saw mostly in 2024 with Mean Girls and Wicked. Wicked promoted itself like so purely as this musical film, tons of merch, like it went above and beyond in promotion and just doing everything. It was marketed incredibly. Mean Girls, on the other hand, tried to not promote itself as a musical, and that led to a lot of issues, especially with the non-theater community.
And with the theater community, I mean,
Yeah.
the non-theater community felt like, oh, what the heck did I just show up to? But the theater community was like, and me specifically, I was like, why are you hiding us? Why are you ashamed to promote to us? We are I mean, I know that they did like, oh, did you hear, like, oh, we did testing rooms. And I'm like, okay, I don't really care. I wasn't in the testing room.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And then when doing an adaptation of anything, there are going to be the diehard fans of the material that are going to criticize any change to it. And so then with a musical adaptation, and really any adaptation of anything, people are going to have issues just nitpicking the material that it came from and the changes made in the adaptation. And then with musicals specifically, there is this like anti-musical community who just like hates musicals and hates fun, and it prevents the films from being seen. And they're important stories, and that's why adaptations happen, is because these stories need to appear to wider audiences, because not everybody can get themselves to the theater or New York or their local theater to see these productions. And so it's so important to make these films, but then internally criticizing the film before it comes out literally is hindering that in every form. And then you have the people who are going to criticize it for just generally being a musical. And so like, I just feel we should support our local community. Our local community being international theater community. The international theater community. But also support local theater.
True. That also begs the question of like, what is the best way to put out a musical, you know, to a wider audience? And yeah, like you said, like making it more accessible. We have we've talked about movie musicals that are as true to form as possible. I would say like Les Mis is up there to as true to form as possible. No, you don't think so?
Well, people gripe about the Les Mis film so much. Well, one of the things is like too much talking, I guess.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, wait, that's so true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I would say Les Mis isn't as true.
Okay, I'm trying to think
I just don't know if there is one that is. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are, but I
the
can't
new
think
West Side Story.
Oh, that's up there.
Okay. Anyway, maybe examples aren't necessary, but movie musicals as true to form as possible, or are we looking for like the modern adjustments? How different are they?
Like Annie 2014.
Annie 2014. Just, I really think hit it out of the park, but also I think that's because it was so far away from the original.
100%. Yeah.
You know, you can't do that with Dear Evan Hansen. You can't do that with, you know, another 21st century musical. So, you know, and then there's the pro shot. What do you think about pro shot?
I love a pro shot, and I feel bad looking up like slime tutorials on the internet, but I just want to see all of the theater that I can. And when shows are no longer running, you can't get yourself to the theater because it's not showing. So I think everything should be forced to publish a pro shot.
Wow.
Yeah, I just believe
At the end of their run.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, whenever they feel fit. I'm gonna go watch the Falsettos Pro Shot sometime this week. But I think Hamilton did an amazing job making their Pro Shot accessible.
Agreed.
And that show worked really hard to be as accessible as possible, having the cast album be pretty much the whole musical. Newsies posting their Pro Shot, also on Disney Plus, just making it really accessible.
Yep.
And we had that CD, and I've actually never seen the actual movie. I just watched Jeremy Jordan in the Pro Shot, and I'm so content with that.
Yeah. I also think the big reason why people don't want it is like, oh, people will not come to the theater anymore. Yeah. That's simply not true. I've seen the Hamilton Pro Shot so many times, and then I bought tickets to go see it on stage, and it was a packed house. Like, people are still seeing the shows. The shows that are, I honestly will say that for some people, that makes them want to go see the show even more. So I think that that's something that the theater community or the admin, whatever, have gotten wrong. The pro shots are helping and not hurting.
Yes. It's a completely different experience in the theater, at your house, in a movie theater. I always love something more in the theater. Whether that's a movie theater or on Broadway, I love a good theater setting. So we will be there. You should be there, whether that's the movie theater in a new musical adaptation, enjoying the fact that the media gets to be shared to a wider community, a wider audience, introduced to people in their youth so they can find their favorite musical and then go see it on stage.
Yes. I also think that the more we support musical adaptations, the more will be made.
Yes.
And then the better they will get and the improvements will happen that we're looking for. We have to support the current ones in order for there to be future ones.
100%. And that is it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Books, Movies, Musicals, and More. Thank you, Kathleen, for joining us at the end. And for more episodes, subscribe below or follow Zitro Ayams on TikTok for updates.